Wow, welcome everybody to Discovery Cube Talks. Discovery Science series presented virtually by Cube Innovators every second Tuesday of the month for the next 12 months. Tonight, we are so excited. We have Dylan Watkins, who will be speaking for 20 minutes and taking questions on the power of social connection in virtual reality. Thank you for joining each month to learn more about and embrace science in our lives. In the upcoming months, we are enthusiastic, per usual, about sharing experts in science that help make our planet a healthier place. We also have a list of other incredible speakers who are coming up. Many of you probably remember Dr. Ian Finty, who was a scientist who shared his incredible work with JPL. He'll be coming on October 13th. Please look at some of the other incredible speakers we have coming up as well. Dr. Amy Zimmer-Faust, Dr. Dan Cooper, and Dr. Nicola J. Fox. So we certainly have a great lineup for everyone. So per usual, I'm going to help with the housekeeping rules. They are pretty simple tonight. I know we don't have a very unruly bunch, but we're doing things a little differently tonight. We're going to really ask for people to be engaged and involved in this virtual community with us. Number one, in order to not distract from the presentation, everyone will be muted until Q&A. Number two, if you have a question, please save them for the Q&A and raise your hand to be called on. The moderator, who will be Dylan, will give a limited amount of time for each person to ask and answer the question. Of course, per usual, please be kind and respectful during any and all communications. You can be muted or ejected at the moderator's discretion. So I'm just letting everybody know, no wild and woolly things will be allowed. And then number four, any additional technical questions or questions not related to the presentation, please directly message to me or to Elizabeth. We're always happy to help and want to make sure you enjoy your experience. Number five, and most important, have fun, be curious, and make friends. For those who were unable to join us or would like to view this broadcast at a later date, we will be recording it and making it available on YouTube. So now I'm going to introduce Neil Sahota. He is a fabulous member of the CUBE's Leadership Council and personally a spirit animal. So I know that's a personal joke that we have now between us. Neil is known to help people make their dreams come true. And he has helped us even with the Innovators Council. He is an IBM master inventor, author, business advisor, keynote speaker, and Tech Coast angel. Please join me in welcoming Neil Sahota.
Hey, thanks, Bree. Appreciate that. I hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. You know, it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, who's an amazing human being and a great friend of mine, Dylan Watkins. He's a human-centric designer and founder CEO of Reality Smash, a purpose-driven immersive development studio that's developed augmented and virtual reality experiences, as well as artificial intelligence tools for organizations, universities, and large brands. Dylan is a community XR, that's extended reality, evangelist and lead organizer for the OC Virtual Reality Meetup, which has over 1,500 enthusiasts. He's the lead organizer for SoCal Virtual Reality Conference and Expo, immersive technology specialist for Wonderseed nonprofit, and the host of the Heroes for Reality podcast. I can tell you that Dylan is deeply passionate about using immersive experiences to entertain, inspire, and transform. So let's please welcome Dylan Watkins.
Awesome. Hey, Neil, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate that intro. It's going to save me time on my intro slide that I put inside there. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for being a part of the Discovery Cube's presentations here. And this is the power of social connections in virtual reality, presented by me, Dylan Watkins. Hello. With that being said, I'm going to give you just a brief background of me, which Neil touched on, and I'll dive right into everything. So exactly like what Neil said here is that lead organizer, the local meetup group, Nexus Point for Developers. I actually got started years ago when I backed a product on Kickstarter called Oculus, put the headset on, mind was blown, and decided to dive into it deeply. From that, we worked on events around social connections, like getting together, talking about VR, AR, and all those other technologies, educational events, and eventually hackathons, which are known as content creation weekends, where me and a bunch of my geeky friends get together and we build something that interests us over the course of a weekend. And so I've done that work for groups like UCI. I was the lead judge for USC, and I was over at the MIT Media Labs, where I helped host, organize, and teach virtual reality. And a couple of my passions beyond just immersive and emerging technologies is transformational work, things that help people transform in life, technology, and business. So I have the podcast, Here's Reality. And all of this led into Reality Smash, which is our purpose-driven studio that works on things that inspire, engage, and entertain. And these are just a couple of our partners. With that being said, I want to start it off with a quote. And the quote is this: if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead them to new ways of thinking. Buckminster Fuller. Now, when we talk about transformation and immersive technologies and all these different types of stuff, and you really think about what does it really take to really get people to transform, and what is it, more than anything, what is it that is our human superpower? What is something that allows us to do something that no one else can do? What brought us from the middle of the food chain all the way to the top of the food chain to actually terraforming the planet? And really, that superpower comes down to this: mankind's ability to use technology to collaborate through space and time together. And we've been doing this since the dawn of man. We have intimately tried to understand each other. And so we've created technologies along the way. Language was one of the first forms of technology that we created and had a certain amount of bandwidth. After language became audio and then video and then, onward and upwards from them, there, and out. So that is our superpower. And what put rocket fuel onto our superpower? Well, COVID. COVID basically overnight turned that vitamin, virtual reality, into a pain pill, a problem that we need to solve right now because we have to. It is no longer a luxury. It is something to actually really focus on and get right because we have to. And this is just some examples. Zoom went from 10 million users to 300 million users in just 1 year. I mean, how many people are having Zoom meetings these days? I mean, raise your hand if you are now having Zoom meetings, you no longer connect in person. I know our team is. 1.5 billion children in 165 countries. That's 87% of the children's population globally has been affected by this pandemic. We are now having to find out ways to use our superpower, the ability to connect through time and space socially, in a way to solve this problem today. So virtual reality, you might just think of it as entertainment or education, but it really goes across so many sectors. If you think of a sector that VR is impacting today, it's already there. So for example, just take a look at the growth. I backed a project in Kickstarter, I believe it was like 2014, that nobody knew about the headsets. And now, as I talk to more and more people, people go from hearing about it, to testing it, to knowing it, to building on it, and onwards and upwards. I mean, you can see the growth rate of standalone headsets. And this is compounding. So it's not 50 million. It's going to be well over 180 million headsets compounding by the year 2023, because it is one of the best, most impactful ways to socially connect with other people for various reasons that I'll dive into. So VR entertainment. I mean, my own company has a VR game that is a social experience that kids play online together. But VR entertainment, it's not just in-home entertainment. There's arcades popping up. There's warehouses. There's amusement parks. There's movies. Any place where people are looking to be entertained, VR has found its way there. One example is Alex Half-Life, created by Valve Studios, that recently got released and did over $40 million in-home sales for their Vive headset. And that is just, that just recently came out, and the industry is just a couple of years old. VR education, there are so many use cases and examples. I know when we did VR education hackathons, there's a ton of use cases. There's teachers today using it to bring students back to the Roman Colosseum. You could take the tours of Egypt, where you actually have someone from the Smithsonian come in and give you a tour. There's examples where you can actually learn to type better, faster, and stronger inside with a VR headset on. There's so many examples. The compounding annual growth rate for VR education is 59% over the next 4 years. And then VR for emotional therapy. VR is known as the ultimate empathy machine. My company and many other companies are using VR for difficult conversations to allow people a safe place to have a difficult talk. One of my partners I'm working with on the project and has his own things is Skip Rizzo, part of USC, and he has Brave Mind. Brave Mind is an experience that he created for PTSD for veterans in warfare, where it exposes them, trauma Q exposure, to a dangerous situation and treats them. So he's literally treating heroes before and after the heroic event. Before with resilience training, and then afterwards with trauma Q exposure, using both real live therapists and AI therapist bots. And oddly enough, and Neil can tell you more about this, AI therapist bots make people feel more comfortable being vulnerable and honest to an AI therapist bot because of the lack of judgment they feel from the AI device. Now, you could also do it for physical therapy. Physical therapy, there's a bunch of examples. I'm going to give you two. One example, I was part of the USC hackathon, the lead judge over there, and one of the teams took shaky cam technology, put someone inside a VR headset, and then took their hands and normalized them in VR. So you could have a higher quality of life inside the VR. So people with Parkinson's could paint better. Now, not only that, they could use AI to analyze that and provide back training applications. So they're actually developing new neural pathways that allows them to be able to not only have a higher quality of life in VR, but when they take it off, in real life. A second example is our game, Sweet Escape, which I'll show you a video for later. Sweet Escape was an actual in-home entertainment social experience that got a finalist write-up, a part of the AI Med conference, for being a finalist for being used for children's hospital beds for physical recovery, so they could be social and recover inside actual hospital beds. And so those are just two of the examples for VR for physical therapy. And then ultimately, our superpower, the ability to collaborate through space and time, that VR is the ultimate mechanism for this. I mean, you could design rocket ships in VR, and then you can go ride rocket ships in VR. You could even take those rocket ships and you could bring it to a 3D device and print up pieces to go on an actual rocket ship, if you so be inclined. It really is the ultimate form of collaboration and expression. So when I talk about the powers of social connections in VR, what do I mean by a social connection? We are all individuals, but we are all collectively connected. And if you look at social connections, it's really my ability to understand intimately what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're meaning, and what you're trying to project to me. And the deeper, the more integrated, the more connected that is, the stronger the social connection. And that's what I mean by social connection. This is just a little draw up for you, IRL, in real life. And what I mean by this is that in real life, there's a certain amount of bandwidth that you get. And without the use of technologies, you could say, you know, we started out and we had grunting and we gave the ability to really have, you know, language, and we could eye gazing and we could look at each other and we could track to here. And ultimately, over time, that is about the level of output, technically drawing there, on what people can do in real life for the social connections. In VR, it might have started out a little slower and bulkier, but as it got smoother and faster and better, and then we started stacking on additional technologies like artificial intelligence to give us more insights, like biofeedback to give us a deeper understanding of ourselves and share with each other, like eye tracking for the ability to actually see what people are thinking and intending, and ultimately things like Neuralink, where they actually can implant a chip in your brain. So with VR telepathy, they can send it to your phone, which can send it to your device. These things go onwards and upwards ultimately. And those are some of the powers that you have inside virtual reality, stacking other technologies, other immersive and emerging technologies to really take it to another level. It's ultimately a truly neutral form of social connection. So people aren't judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. So it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are. All that matters is how deep is our relationship and what can you provide to me or the group in terms of connections. For example, this is our game Sweet Escape, and at an arcade in Minnesota, they sent this to us and they said, hey, we love your game for birthday parties and you're a big hit. And you can see not only these kids playing it in a social distancing kind of way, but also there's someone at the end who's also playing it in a chair, and you can see it doesn't matter if you're standing or sitting, anybody can have a great time in VR. So you can see even the person in the back sitting next to the green walls is having a great time inside virtual reality. So that was the sweet, little sweet escape. I'm gonna give you a little bit of the sour. Really, if I talk about the power of virtual reality, I can't mention the positive without mentioning the negative, because there are dangers. Because with great power comes great responsibility. Uncle Ben said that from Spider-Man. It could have also been from a US president, but I know it from Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. And it's true, with great power comes great responsibility. And who is more responsible than parents? Parents have the ultimate responsibility, protecting their kids from danger. And they already protect their kids from dangers in other situations. Social virtual reality even compounds that. And what are the social dangers that we can think of already? What are some social dangers in virtual reality to be aware of? What are some normal dangers? Well, bullying, we know is one. Cyberbullying, so terrifying that kids won't Facebook Live or do anything else because of their fear of being cyberbullied, especially with people being anonymous. Harassment, having an embodied cognition, having the movement of being an actual avatar in the space. Harassment gets even more personal, even more in your face. Content exposure, it's not just the direct intent or ill will of people trying harm, but witnessing something, seeing something, hearing something, all those things that parents dread having the conversation about what happened and how to explain it to their child. And then ultimately, the things that parents are incredibly afraid of is abduction. We know as another term, the unspoken fear of stranger danger. Stranger danger is a really big concern, because VR is the wild, wild west, and the internet is the wild, wild west, and it's our job to protect the kids. So here's a small personal experience of my own just last week, about 5 days ago. I was showing my brother VR. He's got 2 younger kids, and I took him through several experiences, one of them being this game called Rec Room. And as we were running around the experience, a young boy came up and said, "Hey, let me show you around and give you the tours. You guys seem to be lost," because we are somewhat known as noobs in the space. And after a while, he goes, "You guys sound a little older. How old are you?" "Well, how old are you?" And he turned to us and goes, "I'm 11. I go, "Well, I'm 37 and my brother's 47. Immediately, the kid started freaking out, because he knows about stranger danger as much as we know. And now there's this awkward situation where he goes, "Oh my God, mate, I'm freaking out right now. It's bullets." He was British, so that's why I use those words, and I'm terrible at accents, so bear with me. But again, it was this crazy experience, and thankfully I'm just a geeky guy who wanted to show his brother off to some amazing technology. But stranger danger is alive and well. No one knows this better than one of my mentors and advisors in space, Jesse Schell. He's an American author, game designer, very famous for the things he's done. He was the head of VR for Disney for a number of years, and he pioneered some of the online kids experiences like Toontown Disney Online. And he was telling me, as I was talking to him about building social VR experiences for kids, not only for our game, but future games that we're building, he goes, "Look, Dylan, here's an issue. If you mess up code on a game, you just have a broken game a kid plays. If you mess up an experience for people online, kids online, you have something much, much worse. Go watch my talk at GDC and you'll see what I mean." So I went and watched that talk. In that talk, he talked about building experiences for parents and kids for Toon Online. And he goes, this is what we actually have to be concerned with, what we're building against. There was a child that he was researching that he had in his talk here about this girl that got abducted from the gentleman on the right from online chat rooms. And he goes, this is the challenge and this is what we need to protect against. And he got so boastful that he started posting videos online. And after 4 days, the FBI came knocking on his door and rescued the small child there and was able to take her away to safety. But these are really the concerns that people have with all of us now, 1.5 billion kids going online. How do you keep your kids safe and social in virtual reality? You know, what is it to really do? What is it that you can do? And for me, it's almost like when we were playing that game that we showed you for VR, I want you to imagine a ball pit, if you would. It's beautiful, it's shiny, it's wonderful, it looks playful, right? And next to it, there's a sign, and it says all ages. An all age sign, so all of a sudden, an 11-year-old jumps in there and it's playing around and expecting to see other 11-year-olds. Well, what happens when it pops up and it's a 35-year-old, a 37-year-old, and a 47-year-old? That ball pit now has a completely different connotation to everybody around, right? Because all ages means different things to different people, which is really what brings us to the crux of the problem right now. Oh, gonna hit this back button one more time. which is the current situation that we have for social safety online. Right now, there's only two solutions. One, allow kids to access online to the wild, wild west of VR and other places, or to cut them off in social isolations. A lot of the parents that I've talked to, they just say, I just don't let their kids do it. I tell them, no, don't do it. Don't talk to anybody. Stranger danger. And most kids are aware of that. At the same time, isolation is what you do to our worst criminals as the worst form of punishment. You literally take criminals and they're all together, and to punish them even more, you put them in isolation. And you can see that the negative mental effects that isolation has on young populations and all populations, because we are social creatures, because our superpower is to connect socially. So right now with that, gonna hit the back button one more time. Facebook, PlayStation, Oculus 5, all of these people are either ignoring or restricting access for kids under the age of 13. That's great and all, but this comes to the issue of this. That just kicks the problem down the virtual road. And the biggest problem with kicking that issue down the virtual road is kids will follow the fun even if it leads them into harm's way. They will track that ball, and that is all they're paying attention to. All they want to do is have a good time, and it can put them in harm's way. Which really leads to, what does it mean to be heroic? So I've thought about this a lot. As I've run the podcast Heroes of Reality and interviewed a lot of people, and also building experiences for kids online socially. What it means to be heroic, heroes have great power, and they use that power to protect. They protect against evil. What is evil? Ultimately, I believe evil is the corruption, abuse, and destruction of innocence. And it is a hero's job to protect the innocent, to keep them safe. So really, after giving this a lot of thought, for me, it's our job to be heroes of this reality by bringing kids together in safe online communities built for them. A place that allows them to be social, a place that allows them to connect without the fears of stranger danger, where parents know they're safe, where kids are there to be free and have a good time with other kids because they're gonna follow the fun no matter what. And it's our job to set up those guardrails. So Heroes Unite. This is the big problem. We were all looking at VR like a vitamin and immediately turned into a pain pill. 1.5 billion kids, 87% of the kids' populations are following the fun and following the education into this online area. And it's our job to really create these safe places online, places where they can learn, places where they can discover, places where they can play with other kids to be kids online, because that's what kids love to do. And that is our job as heroes for them. So I'll leave you with this closing thought. We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams. Humans have one of the most amazing abilities to imagine a future potential and bring it so sharply into their vision and craft it so crisply to be able to share that with other people, that they take that imagination of that future potential and they make it real. Why? Because the human superpower is to use technology to collaborate through space and time. And that's what we love to do. And if you look at our world today, that is how we have spread across the globe. And ultimately, that is the power of social connections and virtuality. Thank you so much. My name is Dylan Watkins, and this has been the presentation. And now we'll be opening it up for any Q&As that might have. So thank you so much, and we'll be moving on to the next phases. Great. So with that being said.
How are we doing the questions?
Well, let's start with you, Rick.
Okay. Well, I just thought, I wasn't sure whether we were chatting or not. Dylan, thank you so much. That was a really fascinating description. You were really leading me forward on the question I wanted to get to around age. And you hit one of the key ones, which is some of the safety items. In our physical presence, we'll be able to control that pretty well. Is there other factors that we should be considering around the age for our educational materials for VR? Because probably our wheelhouse is 5-year-olds. Is that early? Are there other risks around the technology relative to age, other than the safety items you mentioned?
Yeah, 100%. So there's been a lot of studies done around that. Anything from the most part above the ages of 7 and up, There is no real ocular damage or other things that has been seen. 6 and below, there's issues with the interpupillary distance being too close, and it causes issues and things like that. But from what we've seen, a lot of the studies have shown ages 7 and up is really where it becomes physically safe to go in there. And again, everything within moderation. I mean, you can abuse cheeseburgers as much as you can the internet. So with that being said, I am gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can have a better connection here. What up? Cool. Yeah, so hopefully that answered your question. Yeah? Okay, fantastic. Great. So with that being said, who else has questions? We're gonna go ahead and say, whoever is the quickest to pop in and ask a question, we'll take them that way. So is there somebody that has a burning question that they want to answer? Jay?
Hey, Dylan. Thanks for the presentation. You actually made me worry more than anything else. You mentioned Neuralink and digital memory with respect to senses. What in the world are you talking about?
I'll talk about 2 things. So one, Elon Musk created a thing called Neuralink. And what that is he actually has a thing where they cut a small hole out of the side of the brain, and then they actually insert a chip into your brain. And it is such a fine stitching that it stitches in between the neurons of your brain and sits right in there. And right now they're using it, I think they just did it to the first pig, I want to say, but then they're going to move on to primates and humans with disabilities and things along that process. But it basically links up Bluetooth to your actual phone. And it does a Bluetooth link to your app on your phone so that you can connect through there. So ultimately, you can increase the bandwidth of knowledge and learning. The challenge is that we have the internet's bandwidth and we can pipe in gigabytes and petabytes and all that fun stuff. But we have a bandwidth issue with learning. We can only process so much data through education, through our auditory, through our audio and visual senses. And so that only has a little bit of mouth. So he's putting the chip into the brain to open up that bandwidth. So Neo style, you can hit download, and ideally in the future, you say 10 years plus, be able to be completely directly connected to the machine. Now, there's steps before that. There's a woman by the name of Mary something. I can't think of her name. But she was the ex-head researcher for Facebook. She was the head researcher for Facebook. She was a very, very smart woman. And I watched a video that I was like, oh my God, I don't know if what she's talking about is real, because she was talking about AR, VR telepathy. And I was like, so I sent it to a couple of my friends over at MIT and other spaces. I go, hey, I may not be smart enough to really know if she's telling the truth. Can you tell me she's doing it? And so all of my friends confirmed this through the space. But she worked for Oculus, and she realized this is that an MR machine scans your brain. And if it scans your brain, you can look at the way it all moves. But these cameras on your phones right now are getting so powerful that they can actually, if you take off the filter, you can look at blood flow. So she took an array of cameras and put it on the inside of the headset. So literally, she made an MRI machine inside the headset. And she said, basically, over time, what happens when it can tell what you're seeing, it can tell what you're hearing, it can tell how you're responding, it can tell where you're looking, and it's looking at the way your brain and the blood flows. Well, over time, you're going to be able to have AR, VR telepathy with the use of an array of cameras, bringing down the price from a 1,000-fold or whatever, all the way down. So that's non-invasive versus the totally invasive total cyborg version.
So you can know what I'm thinking. I don't.
We are ultimately moving to complete transparency. That's where we want to go. We all want to go there, but we all don't want to go there. We have this amazing desire to know what the other person's thinking, but we're afraid to share on our side. The conundrums of wanting to be accepted a part of the tribe, but also afraid to be rejected. It's an existential kind of issue we have.
Sounds frightening. I think Craig had a question. I don't know if he's still on or not. Craig Frankel.
Yeah, Craig, you got a question? Maybe yes, maybe no.
Well, he wrote it in the chat. It's how might AI be used to protect VR users?
How what?
How might AI be used to protect VR users?
Sure. I mean, there's a ton of use cases. The thing with VR and the thing with AI, it's like, it sounds amazing. But when you think about it, you really want to solve problems. Ultimately, we're all about any type of anything that's got ever created, it solves a problem. So all the great technologies have brought us closer together. Airplane, cell phone, internet, they're bringing us close together, so they're solving problems. And so AI really, it's got this big mythical term of being this AI, thinking bot that can do any and all things, but really the small things. I mean, AI in terms of analyzing big data, it can look for patterns for saying threat detections. It can look for patterns to protect people. It can also consume large amount of data. It can see if you're going into an unsafe area. It can, if programmed correctly, because ultimately AI goes down to, it's 3 levels of AI. It's first tracking. Can AI track and gather all this stuff? That's the first layer. Then can you tweak where you're making small little changes, and then ultimately prediction. Prediction is the big holy grail of what people think AI is, but really you've got to go through those phases, and even Google's having trouble picking up, the level of prediction of what you want. Ultimately, the reason why they have that "I'm feeling lucky" button is they want to be able to predict what your top answer is out the gate. So your thought enters the correct answer, that frictionless experience. So ultimately, AI could either protect us in that way, serve up better connections, can tell if someone's in distress through the sound of their voice, can look at biofeedback monitors to see if someone's in danger, but it allows you to do monitoring, tracking, or prediction at a higher level, but it all depends on the use cases.
Interesting.
Dylan?
Yeah.
My husband, Waki, has a question.
Yeah, hi. I'm a real estate developer. When we develop a project, we always look at our competition. We look at what they're doing well, how are they faring in the marketplace, and then we copy it and we improve on it. We try to take the best and integrate it into whatever we're doing. Well, my question to you is, what are some successful undertakings involving online education and VR in the demographic we are serving, which is primarily kids, I don't know, 6 to 13. Is there anyone else out there with a product that we should emulate?
And when you say to 13, when you're saying primarily, is it for the Discovery Cube specifically, or are you saying in terms of just general education?
No, I'm not. Well, you start with the general. We'll work it into our program.
Sure. Okay, so answer a couple things. One, I mean, what you just said is we look at the people and we stand on the shoulder of giants, we take their ideas and we bring it over. I mean, that's so innately human. I mean, one of our first technologies is mirror neurons, our ability to see and mimic what other people do successfully, and that's one of our abilities. So, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. In terms of successful applications, I mean, again, it's like, what's successful in AI? There's a bunch of different companies doing a bunch of different things in these different sections. So, I mean, you can use VR for language learning. You can use VR for being able to have empathy-driven conversations. You can use VR to help teach technical aspects. So things that have what we call embodied cognition. Embodied cognition is my ability to move through a physical space and know that my body knows how to react to a situation. So if you're training kids, and I want to advise this on how to build out high power lines and how to get inside there and cut the right wires, you can literally train sequences and operations better than anything else inside that. So it helps with soft skills. It helps with hard skills, trade skills. It can help with just overall visceral memory. Again, you're walking them through the pharaoh's temples. The Smithsonian is literally taking kids on tours through the Nefertiti, I think it is, or someone in Egypt. And there's so many other examples, but they're all slices. Like one of the best ones I saw was a keyboard game made at one of my hackathons. They eventually got picked up at Disney, but you put it on and it's VR typing. The words come at you, and as you look at the words, you got to type. And it's like you shoot them out of the sky by typing. So you have this threat of these words come at you, and you type better, and you're going at it. So it's not about like AI. My AI needs to take over the world, and it needs to be able to be that. That's not how it works. There's small little slices that add value, that solves problems. So my big question to you would just be, what's the main problem you're trying to solve? What are the issues around that? And then we can talk about what technologies you can bolt on to make it better.
Well, actually, can I ask a question too,
Yeah.
Dylan?
Yeah.
And that is, okay, with the AI, you need the headsets, and how general out into the population are those available? Even now, getting iPads to all of the students that are not meeting at school. I mean, is this feasible?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just look at this. In 2007, nobody had a cell phone. No one had an iPhone. 2007, right? Now, if you don't have an iPhone, you're a weirdo. Like if I pulled out my pager and I said, hey, you need to page me, bro, everyone's going to laugh at you, right? That is, how many years is that? 13 years for mass adoption, right? And VR just came out 5 years ago, and it's following the same trend and pattern. So, I mean, it's very much like, you know, building a town in the desert saying the trains are coming. Well, the train is coming. It's here, and it's getting smaller, better, lighter, faster. One of the most recent headsets that I really like that kind of crossed the chasm from novelty to actual value add is the Oculus Quest headset. That headset right now is targeted at $399, the headset itself. So you can go out and buy it, and you can do all the amazing things with it. It's good enough. It's a standalone headset that's light, that you can move through the environment. And I
have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize I was on mute. Sorry.
Well, just the last thing I'll say this is Walmart leaked, and this is unofficial, but Walmart leaked because there's going to be a new Quest headset coming out, that the price is actually going to be $299, not $399. So right now you have an amazingly high quality headset that what we call 6 degrees of freedom, that does everything that you need to do, that should be coming out sometime soon for, you know, cheaper than a cell phone. So, yes, Michelle, hi. You're muted this time, so we just got to flip the script on that.
I put it in chat. I was facing as a mom a challenge with my daughter she's 16. I know she's above cube age, but she's having challenges with memory retention with the online learning. And I keep thinking she's not having the hands-on learning experience that we know works so very well. And I was wondering if we could use AI or VR to maybe customize learning towards children who are feeling they're having some challenges during this odd time. What are your thoughts on that, and is it being done?
Yes, yes, and yes. Yeah, it's all being done. So I mean, my partner that I'm working with on VR Difficult Conversations and a number of other projects, he built out a VR simulation for kids with autism, and allowed them to focus in an environment and inside a classroom and led them through it. And so there's scientific studies that show the effectiveness of focus retention, because instead of, one of the challenges is you took kids and you put them inside an actual physical classroom where they have what's known as social pressure. Social pressure is I'm sitting there and there's people around me, so I'm conforming to the environment. Right now with Zoom, you kind of don't have that, because I can just put a photo of my face right here and there's nothing you can do about it. You ain't got no power over me here. You know what I'm saying? Like, the challenge with that is that there is no social pressure. We are all these little boxes. So ultimately, if you created a situation that put everybody inside there and you were able to lead them through it, that created the same type of either social pressures or trackability, I don't know if that's a real word, but you put them through a whole thing, that really allows them to get them to be focused and get them to feel the environment. I think it's important. One of the reasons why I like having all these screens on, I can see everyone's faces and I feel a bit of a stronger connection, right? I can see everybody.
We still can't look at each other's eyes, and that's what she said is her biggest challenge.
I know, it's being a little different. It's like, we've had that problem for a long time. We have 2 eyes. We don't know the left eye, right eye, left eye, right eye. So you still have that issue in real life.
I see one more question from Malcolm. I know we're running out of time, Dylan, but I just wanted to see if we can maybe take one more question. There might be 2 questions, but I see Malcolm's hands up.
Hey, Malcolm.
I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the use of cell phones as a headset? I know that Google, I think, at one point had a little...
Terrible experience. No, really, it's awful. I would not recommend it to anybody. The reason being is this, is with the headset, you have what's called 3 degrees of freedom, pitch, roll, and yaw, right? And so all you can do is you're basically stuck in a chair like a weeble wobble, and this is all you can do. when you have these standalone headsets, what you do is you have this entire headset that gives you 6 degrees of freedom so that you can not only do pitch roll, I can walk around the room, I can duck under the chair, I can go around the entire space. And so the quality goes through the roof. And then also in terms of updates and other issues,
Yes.
it's much better to have a streamlined single standalone headset. So.
I want to ask one more quick one,
Sure.
because I do some flight simulation, and I'm wondering, because I've talked with some of my friends who have now gone to VR headsets to be able to do that and get all of that. Can you make some comments there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that's really big. It's really popular. It's been around for years. I have friends of mine that have been building flight sims for the military for like 20 years, but they've had it because they have a $50,000, $500,000 budget. So they put you in, a giant arm that can spin you all around and all that stuff. So there's a whole bunch of flight sims available, and a lot of them are getting to be commercial use because someone gets paid by the government to make it for the government, and then they go and release it online for things. And so there's a bunch of flight sims that are out there already today.
I was just thinking about using the VR headset for it.
It's totally being done, and it's a great use case.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so exciting, and we cannot thank you enough, Dylan. I now have a huge and tremendous honor of introducing Janet Ray, who is our Innovators Chair with Jay Witzling. So, Janet, take it away.
I'd like to thank Dylan so much for coming this evening, and I think we've learned a lot. And I'd also like to thank all of you for joining us. We are thrilled to be able to offer the Cube Talks, a virtual science series during this COVID time. And we had a quick response right after COVID hit. The Innovator Leadership Council acted nimbly and created this virtual speaker series to be held monthly for the entire year, for next 12 months. And so we'd like to invite all of you to join us every second Tuesday for the next 12 months from 7 to 7:45, and we're pretty close, for the Cube Talks. You, as members of the Innovators, will receive a monthly invitation from Elizabeth Corella, Director of Development at the Cube. And be sure to register online, as you did today, and let Elizabeth know if you have friends who are also interested in joining the Innovators. As Bree said earlier, our next Cube Talk is on Tuesday, October 13th, with Dr. Ian Fente, who just got back from Greenland, and he has some new findings on the ice caps. So stay tuned, and I hope that you can join us. Be part of the new normal at the Cube, where we use innovative solutions to keep our Cube family informed. Let's hang together, be safe, and come out stronger through science at the Cube. Thank you again, Dylan, and thank you all of you for coming, and good night.